Welcome to the VBSC Podcast. My name is Greg Herceg. I am your host, also known as the Volleyball Strength Coach. And this is the podcast where we talk about all things volleyball strength and conditioning. And I am here with the whole squad today. We got Coach Gerry, Coach Dion, and Coach CeCe. And today we're going to go a little bit further away from the strength and conditioning side, more into the volleyball specific side. And we're going to talk about film. And we're going to talk about watching our film, what we look for on our own film, and then what we look for our clients' film as well. Because one of the big things we do with our online clients that we work with one-on-one is we look at their volleyball film so that we can figure out what they can focus on to actually become a better volleyball player. And there's a few specific things that we can help with like approach, arm swing, just like physical mechanics and everything like that. But with all of us and all of the coaches, everybody here also being high-level volleyball players, high-level coaches, we can help with some of the specifics on the skill side of things too. So we're going to dive into what we do with our clients. We're going to dive into looking at our own film, why it's important to look at film, and just hopefully give you guys some good takeaways and motivate you guys to start filming yourself, because I do firmly believe that it is one of the highest leverage things you can do to become a better volleyball player is to start looking at film. So I think it's funny because one of the conversations we have a lot with clients or just people who do look at their film and they're like, man, it always like feels way better than it looks when you look back at your film. And I think that's especially true for like beach volleyball, because you're jumping about this high off of the ground and you're just moving so much slower than you think. But that's one of the reasons why it's so beneficial. And so obviously I have a lot to say about this. I've been doing film review for quite a few years now. But I wanted to kind of start off with you guys and let you guys do a little bit of the talking here. Also, shout out to Sebastian. He's one of Dion's one-on-one clients. This was his idea. He dropped me a message and said, hey, I have an idea for a podcast for you guys. And then we are doing it the very next day. So Dion, do you want to start since this is from your client?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay, so I guess right away I'll get into what I normally do with clients. And I would say the biggest thing that I look for right away when I'm doing like film review is like you said, approach. And I don't know if that was when we were talking before or just right now, but either way, approach is like the first thing I look for. And the first thing within the approach that I look for is whether they have the correct footwork, because I used to be goofy footed, and I know that this might be a hot take, but I think regardless of if you're beach or indoor, you should switch your footwork if it's not correct. So yeah, that's my big thing is if they're goofy footed, then it's like the first thing that I want to get to correcting. So I also think that with the right intentional mindset, anyone can do it. It might take like a few months, but I definitely think it's doable for anyone who is really dedicated to the process. So I would say that is probably the first big thing that I look for. And then usually I would say I look for different um, I'll watch through the film with them. We might go through things like step by step, but then when we get through enough of the film, I'll be able to take, usually it's one or two key aspects that I see a consistent, they do consistently that is wrong or should be corrected. And then I'll work through that with them. Now that's also, I would say, pretty similar to my own process with how I go through my own film. Usually I'll try to look through my errors and figure out if there's something that I'm missing. For example, I'm receiving and I'm getting beat a lot of the time with my receptions with my platform, and a lot of the time it's because I'm taking it on my midline and I'm getting beat up top or something like that. I realize that, I need to get out of the way of the ball and, bring my platform there instead. So instead of keeping it on my midline, trying to get out of the way of the ball and then taking that into my trainings moving forward, having that as a specific focus. So I think kind of just going through the film, figuring out what the specific focuses need to be in the next trainings coming up, and then executing from there.
Gerry, that's a good lead into you because Gerry has been working for the past few months on fixing his footwork, going from goofy footed to regular. And he is a beach volleyball player because we have talked a bit in the past where it's like it's probably less important for beach volleyball, whether you're goofy footed or not. But I do think it's obviously still beneficial. Clearly, Dion agrees, and clearly Gerry agrees, or he wouldn't be switching to normal footwork. So we can talk about that, but I want to go through, with you being our beach volleyball coach, like what you're looking at, and maybe it's different than what Dion's looking at because the very specific technical aspects of the approach are slightly less important. So I'm curious where you go from there.
I think, well, yeah, just to backtrack to the approach thing, I do agree with Dion that it's important, but I would say if you're past halfway through your career, then it's kind of up for grabs, more so just only talking about beach per se, because I think it is such a big process to ingrain it back. I'm about two months into switching my approach, and it still doesn't feel nearly as nice, or I don't jump as high, and obviously mechanically it should be superior. So I feel like if you are later in your career and playing at the super high level is not your goal, then I don't know exactly if I believe you should switch it, but it's worth looking into for sure. But for me, when doing film review, I feel like it's very personal. Everyone has something that they want to look into during film review, whether it's hand setting, passing, and that's kind of just going through each one and learning why they're doing everything. Because most of the time, it's not just they're doing one thing wrong. It's like the chain of things that happened before that one aspect. And then it's kind of just like rewinding and learning why they're doing each movement, kind of.
Yeah. I'm just taking notes because I've got some stuff that I don't want to forget about. So I'm coming up with kind of some questions here. We're really big, and this is kind of before we get to CeCe, I want to jump in because one of the most important things that I think is like a cornerstone of this is watching through a decent amount of film to identify the patterns before you just nitpick at everything that someone is doing imperfectly, right? Because it's such a chaotic situational thing where it's like, if you just do one thing wrong one time, it's like, yeah, I know that was wrong and like I fixed it. If you're not seeing it as a pattern, I don't feel any reason to call it out. So we will, like my normal process, especially when I have like a new client come in, is just watch through an entire game, like an entire set, and see if there are noticeable patterns within that we can go over. And so I do want to talk about those biggest patterns. First things first, CeCe, I want to just get like your overall take on it.
Yeah, I think a common thing that I talk a lot about with all of my clients, and it kind of ties into approach and arm swing and passing and defense and all of that, is just their body to ball spacing, because a lot of our clients never really had like formal coaching. So whether it's their approach, whether it's their arm swing, whether it's their serve, a big thing that I see is just a lot of times their spacing is off, whether they're just like too tight to the net or they're too far away from the ball, or they're not getting that double arm draw, so they're not able to keep the ball in good spacing. So or they're not transitioning, so they're not able to get in a full approach. So a big thing that we talk about is just their spacing in relation to the ball and their spacing in relation to the net, so that they're able to get in their full approach, they're able to get in their full arm swing. Because we can like go through the mechanics of the arm swing, go through the mechanics of the approach, but if they don't have the space to do it, they end up just doing what they're normally used to. So that's a big thing that we focus on, is just making sure that they're giving themselves enough space to be able to work on their approach and work on their arm swing.
Yeah, it's like one of those really common things that I talk to clients about, indoor clients specifically, is like transitioning off the net.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're starting your approach inside the 10-foot line because you were too lazy to transition, like turn and run. I don't know how you guys feel about turn and run. I'm a big turn and run guy, as opposed to backpedaling as often as possible.
I hate backpedaling with a passion.
Yeah, same. And sometimes if it's like a quicker thing, whatever, that's not the point. But if you're not giving yourself the spacing to actually go through an approach, then it's like, what are we doing all this for? Like, hustle your butt off the net and get yourself into a full approach. I think that kind of lends into the question that I thought of is like, well, actually, before we get to that, the biggest things that we typically look for, at least that I typically look for, are the things to start that we can help with like the workouts or the weight room side of that. And that would be your approach mechanics and your arm swing mechanics. Because those are two things that like we can put that type of stuff in the workouts. Or we have like our jump technique, mobility and recovery days, our arm swing technique, mobility and recovery days. It's like some of the off days that we program for a large percentage of our clients because that's stuff that like makes sense. You don't need a ball, you don't need a partner, you just need a little bit of space to be able to fix those things. So that's usually where we start because that's the kind of stuff that we can help with. But I'm curious, like the biggest patterns you see as far as like you have to correct these things with clients the most often. So CeCe, you just said like spacing, right? But is there stuff that you guys typically find you're like saying this to a large percentage of your clients?
Yes, I got one right away. Setting. This one I think goes for beach and indoor. It's just a little bit different. It's just like squaring up to where you're setting to. Like especially in beach, like when you're hand passing or you're using your platform, just like squaring up to where you're setting to. I mentioned it with so many of my clients because if you have enough time, then there's no reason you can't square up to where you're setting to. It gets rid of the variables, or a lot of them at least. And then not only does it make for a better quality set a lot of the time, but it also gives it like a level of consistency for your partner that like they know where to approach to. They know that if you're squared up there, they can approach there because it's going to go there. So that obviously it's a little bit different in indoor. Well, when you're looking at like a high level setter point of view, at least. But usually I'm teaching if they're setting, then square up to position 4, and if they're off the net, then it's more of like a flick over the shoulder as opposed to squaring up to right side if they're going to set right side.
My partner used to get on me about that, Kevin, because I developed good enough hands that I can still face like a back corner and give a really consistent set over my shoulder. But to your second point there, it was harder for him mentally because if I can just take that one more step with my left, square up to the antenna, then he knows where the ball is, even though I'm pretty confident where the ball is going. Now he knows where the ball is going to. And it was pure laziness because I knew I could get away with a good set and still do that. But he got on me about that. I was like, oh, okay. Like if it's better for you, like fine, I can take one more step, no big deal. So yeah, I think that's a good one. I know my biggest one that I talk to people about on the beach side of things is the combination of like getting to your batter's box and being patient. That is the number one thing. So the idea of the batter's box, I got that from the McKibben brothers. I know a bunch of different people call it a bunch of different things, but it's basically like where you start your approach from for like an in-system set. So it's like you always go to the same spot to start your approach for like your go-to set, whether it's like a 1 or a 2 or like a 4, whatever, 4 or 5. It's like get there and then just wait. And so many people, especially in beach, I just noticed like they want to play so quickly for no reason. And then they're always like rushing their approach or having to slow, or not rushing, they're going early, having to slow down on their approach. The ball's behind them or they're decelerating so they're not jumping as high. And it's like pass the ball nice and high, get to your spot, wait until the ball touches their hands. As the ball touches their hands, take your first step and then do your approach from there. And if people could just like dial that one specific skill in, they would be like substantially better beach volleyball players. That's for sure the biggest one for beach. I'll let you guys go. I'm sure I have one for indoor as well, but Gerry or CeCe, you guys got one?
Mine is definitely with you, Greg. And no one's ever late. You never really see that. Everyone's always early. Number one, obviously, when hitting, but also the other version, I see that they're early as setting too. And oftentimes they're already at the spot and the ball drifts a tiny bit and they're picking it up in front of them and back of them. And it's always just so much better if you meet the ball there and just put all your energy into it versus like needing to fall back. You have an uneven base and all that. So like, it's just, I encourage everyone to like feel what it feels like to be late, and then you can find that middle ground because everyone's always early. Main things that come to mind is the setting and the hitting. But if you can kind of find that middle ground, you'll be hopefully in a better position.
That's something I always tell clients when we talk about this. And I say, like, if you had to choose, I would prefer you be late than be early. Because if you're late, you can always speed up and accelerate your approach. And it's actually more beneficial to accelerate into your approach. And, you know, maybe if you're late, you're contacting a little bit further out in front of you, but that's better than contacting back behind you. And so given the choice, obviously we want to be perfectly on time. But if you had to choose between being late and being early, I would rather have you be late every time. CeCe, what you got?
Yeah, I think slightly the opposite, but from like a defense standpoint, I feel like a lot of my clients are moving too soon on defense, or they're just like always moving and never stopped on defense. So there's a lot of like extra movement being put into the ball. So whether it's blocking or back row, we talk a lot about just like getting into your position relatively early, like getting in front of the hitter, getting around the block, and just going back to the staying patient, just like staying patient instead of trying to like guess where the ball is going to go. So then you end up moving to the right, and then the ball ends up moving to the left. So then we have to move back to the left, and then we're just swinging our platform. So I think for that, that's a common thing that I see with my indoor clients is the lack of patience on defense, and just like the extra movement on defense as well. So they're just putting a lot of extra force into the ball. So when we see a lot of like overpasses or they're shanking the ball just because we're doing too much with our arms and our body.
It's a big thing I notice as well is, again, I think like the majority of my clients, at least right now, we're playing beach or outdoors, right? I don't have a lot of like indoor only clients. So like we have been doing a lot more beach review lately, but it's like being stopped when the other team contacts the ball, when the attacker contacts the ball. Like if you're still moving when they contact the ball, you are much less likely to get a good play. And so that's another, like, even if you are late or something like that, you're not even in the perfect position. Like it's better for you to have your feet stopped than be in like continue to move because you have to get in a better defensive position. And that's definitely a big one, that I get on people a lot. I had something else on that I was going to bring up and I can't remember what it is, but it's okay because I can always come back to it. Oh, yes. We get a decent amount of our clients. One of you guys brought this up earlier. I think it was CeCe. They're all self-taught. So they never played in high school. They never played in college. And they might not even know like where to go on the court, like given a situation. Like I had a client like this in the past. Like we spent his film review sometimes where it's like, you start here. This is like back row defense, right? You start here. When the ball gets set over there, you go here. When the ball gets set over there, you go here. And it's like, let's just work on that. Cause he was like freaking happy feet out there. Just like always moving, feet are shuffling, doing something, like just genuinely did not know where to go. So to just get dialed on defense, it's like, okay, this is your base position. If they set the outside, you just like take a step into the court. If they set the right side, you take your 3 steps back onto the line. If they set the middle, you're just staying there. And like, let's just work on that. And so giving people some of that stuff that we maybe find like super obvious or super foundational, if they've never worked with a volleyball coach before, like getting a lot of that like baseline stuff out of the way that maybe we learned back in high school, but they picked the sport up when they were 25. So they're just sort of guessing. And I think that's a big thing for us to remember too, is like a lot of these people have never been coached before. What, any other big patterns you guys see? Otherwise, I do want to, if you do, that's great. I do want to talk more about like what we do personally for film review, if there's nothing else you guys have. No, good, cool. What's that?
So I think those are all the big ones.
Cool. So talking about what we do for film review for ourselves, I'll start with the biggest thing. I think I've done some posts on this recently, but one of my favorite things to do, especially on tournaments, is to film your first match. And it's an absolute, like literal game. It changes the game. It's a game, like a game changer, because you can see the first match, we'll be honest, usually probably your worst. maybe still kind of getting warmed up, kind of, getting the nerves out, whatever it might be. So as soon as that first match is done, to be able to just sit down in between matches and review what you did and then be able to implement those changes for the rest of the tournament is massively invaluable in my opinion, and probably one of the most important things you can do as a player who's trying to get better, especially if you're like working on winning tournaments or anything like that. I think that's massive. I've got some other things, but yeah, I'm curious what Dion, you said a bit, Gerry, anything that you're looking for particular for you?
Yeah, definitely. Although to piggyback off what you said, I never really even thought about that. But I think a tournament or two ago, I was I was at Fuds, and I was going through my Metaglass clips to post a story, but then I was actually just like going over my game film, and I was like, wait, this is actually like very productive for me. Like I'm just trying to find a clip, but like I didn't. It kind of opened my eyes to like, yeah, you get so much more insight in doing it actively during the tournament, because I've only watched film post tournament, and it's like, oh wow, I wish I could have fixed it, but you can fix it. There's so much downtime, especially at outdoor tournaments, that you can definitely do that. But kind of the system that I started a couple months ago. I need to catch up on it now. I film whatever it is, a practice or game, post it to YouTube as an unlisted video, post it in a notes section, and then I jot down 1 to 3 things that I think I could have done better, 1 to 3 things that I felt I did good, and then like my main intent going into my next practice or play, and then any other like miscellaneous notes that I have on my playing. And I feel like that has done well for me in providing insight and like kind of like giving me a good insight of what I need to work on. And because every time I go to practice, and I'm sure everyone can agree, like they want to work on everything. There's so many different things, but kind of like feeling like getting a good idea of like what the highest leverage move for that next practice is. So you can prioritize all that.
Love that. Yeah. Yeah, mine is less formal than that. It's just looking at everything. First things first, most importantly, I'm reviewing film to find clips to post on Instagram of, just me hitting the ball hard. That's the primary reasoning here, right? Uh, and then, big things that I'm looking for personally. Arm swing is always a big thing for me. Like, how's my arm swing technique? Approach technique, like not there's some things I'll see in that, but then a lot of times, of course, a big one is like passing technique. Passing is something that I've struggled with for my entire career, and I'm probably the best passer I ever have been now, just because I've been consciously working on it for so long. But it's like, are my feet moving? Am I getting like my split step or like whatever before the ball gets contact? Do I have my shoulder shrug? Do I have good posture when I'm passing? How's my footwork when I'm passing? Those are like some of the really big things I'm working at, because like settings typically fine. Blocking, I haven't been blocking as much anymore, but yeah, I think a big thing now, and what I was doing, like reviewing your Wapaka film, was like my defensive movements and everything like that, because I played defense for that whole tournament, which was like a very new thing for me. And trying to like figure out some of the details on like where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing for that. So that was pretty cool too. Um, so yeah,
Which
but
is
it's like
hilarious, by the way. The fact that the biggest guy on our team was our only defender the entire tournament.
Yeah,
And you defended well, for the record.
Yeah.
thank you. I've been a blocker exclusively up until like this year, and I knew that if I blocked in that tournament, I was going to cramp and we were going to be toast. And based on the
Yeah.
fact that I almost tweaked my quad without blocking, I think that was probably the correct move there. So that big body is just too much. I think I'm blocking in my grass forest tournament I have coming up, so I should probably get used to it again. But
Mm.
yeah, looking at that stuff and trying to figure out some of the intricacies of passing or of defense that I've never really had to work on that much. That has been cool, and that's been pretty interesting to kind of like learn something new, almost in a sense there. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know if I had much else there from the film review side of things. Again, big thing is like film yourself that first game of the tournament, pick those 1 to 2 things that you can work on. Because like I said at the very beginning of this episode, it's like nothing ever looks as good as it feels. And so you can see some of these things where it's like you might not feel it when you're playing, but then you see it on film and you're like, oh, dummy, like why are you doing that? You know? So I think it's overall extremely important. One of the most important things you can do if you want to get better at volleyball. Like every college team does it, every high school team does it. It's like if you really want to get better at volleyball, watch your film. You know, it's pretty self-explanatory. I guess last thing we can talk about is like practical. I don't have my tripod here. But it's like, you know, kind of I want to talk about a couple things here because some pushback we get on filming. I have like a $13 tripod from Amazon that just folds up to be about yay big. And for if you're just listening, it's like 6-inch long rectangle and it fits in my gym bag, it fits in my volleyball bag. And I just film with my phone. What have you guys found anything that you really like on the filming side? I know something that me and Gerry struggle with is like phone overheating, playing outside. Anything you guys have figured out to help with that, or just like what's some practical takeaways people can have to just make it easier for them to film?
I think, yeah, just building out those systems for making the film review process simple. Because, yeah, I haven't figured out the overheating issue at all. Although I filmed this past weekend with my Osmo Pocket 3, and it was out in the sun for 4 hours, peak sunlight, and it held up fine. That's like a nice camera, though. I don't think everyone should get it just for volleyball, but like finding those systems. So, like for me, film review was kind of overwhelming with having huge, massive 60-minute files on your phone. Then it's like, where do you put your notes? Like it's just kind of all a scramble. So, like for me, making it easy, like for you, having that tiny little tripod and your phone, you're good. And then like the other like little bottlenecks could be like, oh, my phone doesn't have storage. Like simple, just put to YouTube unlisted video. That's solved. Just have a notes tab. You just post the video link, put some notes, and that kind of like takes away every single bottleneck. So it's like kind of like everyone has some little bottleneck they have towards filming, whether it's like, oh, my phone, I need a tripod, this or that. So just figuring out each one of those and building some kind of system that fits you that you can repeat and do over a long horizon.
Yeah, I guess what we can talk about too is like what we have clients do, which is exactly what you said. So it's like film upload as an unlisted YouTube video, not private, but unlisted, and specifically on YouTube, because then all they have to do is send us the link. And then on YouTube, there's keystrokes that you can do for 5-second skips where you can skip in between every serve and frame by frame with the carrots. So if we're trying to look at like the mechanics of something, we can literally just go frame by frame with the keystrokes and we can see things in a lot of detail. Where if like they, you know, send us a raw video, which I don't think people would typically do because it's so big, or even like in a Google Drive, like it just doesn't work the same. But like an unlisted YouTube video works great because then, like you said, you can delete it off your phone. You know, you have the storage and everything there. Dion, anything practical? I want to talk about the mental side. One more thing before we get off here.
Practical in what way, sir?
Like how to make it easier, like anything you found for people to just like be able to go and like actually do their film, like any tricks or tips or anything. If not a big deal.
Film from coach's view.
Which is
behind the court.
Yep.
I would say that's probably the most effective way to do film review, and you can see the best for things. I would definitely say that.
Yeah, I'm pretty like notorious about I film from the corner, mostly because like the places that I film at, there's not a lot of room in the back. You know, I agree. Best case scenario, absolutely film from behind. But also it's like I want to try to keep it out of the way a little bit. Last thing I will say is a lot of people have the mental barrier around filming for a couple of reasons. The most prominent one is you are not the only person on the court and you're worried about what other people are going to think about you filming. And I will say this from filming volleyball for a long time. Not a single person has ever been upset about me filming. More often than not, they will say, hey, when you upload that, can you send it to me? Because I want to see how I played too. So it's actually a mutually beneficial thing for everyone involved, where it's like, why would they be upset when it can be helpful to them too? You know, because it like they want to see the film. That has happened more times than anything. Sometimes, you know, with my friends or like the community, they just don't want to get clipped. So there's that. And there's a little bit of motivation too. Like they'll maybe try a little bit harder, you know, they don't want to end up on the Instagram. So there's that aspect as well. But it's like nobody cares that you're filming. If they do care, it's because it's a positive way that they want the film too. And I have never had the experience of someone being like, oh, don't film me. I don't want that to end up on like social media. That has never happened to me a single time. And I started filming, I think in 2020. So 6 years of filming my games. Not a single person has ever complained about me filming. People just don't care. It's the same thing like at the gym, you know, like people just don't care. So, yeah, any other things on the mental side before we call it a day here?
It only gets easier too. It's always the first time getting over that mental barrier. Like, oh, what are they going to think about me? Like, nobody cares really. It's happened to me a million times, but once you do it the first time, every single time gets exponentially easier. And people even like you said, people want to go over there and film too. If you post it as an unlisted video, like the amount of value, if they're trying to look at film and all that, the amount of value you could bring them to is also very nice, which is always good. But yeah, they also will, like you said, worry about getting clipped, which is always funny. But besides that, like it's great. Gotta do it once.
And Gerry knows that because he wears sunglasses literally with a camera on them. So he
everyone sees
must
the
know
flashing
more
light
than,
and they're like,
yeah.
You're getting clipped. Yeah. I've seen I don't know if you guys have seen this. I've seen some clips lately of guys playing like volleyball, like indoor volleyball in like the racquetball courts. Hilarious clips, dude, because I think they're D1 players and they're just annihilating balls and it like blocks. It's wild. Such a fun sport to do. If you ever get to play inside a racquetball court, take the chance because it's super fun. Anyways, we'll call it a day there. CeCe had to hop off. I don't know if you guys noticed, but had like she's getting the washer and dryer installed and had to go deal with that. Appreciate you guys listening. If you have any ideas for the podcast, reminder, this idea came from one of our clients who DM'd me on Instagram and said, hey, I have an idea for a podcast. So if you have any ideas, you have any topics you want to go over, either send me a DM, comment on the YouTube video, something like that. Drop a comment on Instagram. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast if you're just on the audio. This is available on all audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, everything like that. If you do want to see the video, it's on the YouTube channel at The Volleyball Strength Coach. And make sure you subscribe. If you are on YouTube, hit that like button, drop a comment, and we appreciate you listening. We will see you next week.